Welcome back to another Sunday prep day. If you're new here, every Sunday I prep for the week. So that means cutting all my vegetables and making things that take a little bit longer. So today I'm going to make tomato soup. I'm going to make some curry paste for some curry. And I'm going to make some coleslaw. And if you want to find the meal plan and all the ingredients that I'm using this week, you can check out my Instagram, because every time I post a Sunday prep day video, I also post on a carousel on there with the before and after of the prep, all the ingredients, and the meal plan. So I'm just starting off by chopping up some leek, and that's going to go in the soup and also in a stamppot. So, by the way, I do plan on making a video about stamppot, which is some classic Dutch dishes. It's a category of dishes. So I'll start filming that today, but that won't be coming out for a couple of weeks probably, because it will take me several weeks to film everything, because I actually eat things that I make. So I plan on doing about one stamppot a week, maybe two. So it will be a couple of episodes, because I'll just do a few different stampots. Anyway, my meal plan for lunch today on Sunday, I'm gonna do some sandwiches. I have some rolls, and I have some some chicken breast. So I'll just do that, and then for dinner I'll have that stamppot that I mentioned with leek, and I'll have that with some smoked sausage. And if you don't know what stamppot is, it comes from it's the same root as stomp, like stomp your feet, push down, or stamp, like pushing down on something. So it means mashing. So let's just make quick work of this leek. Then for Monday, Meatless Monday. Oh, by the way, I don't mention breakfast because I don't usually have breakfast. I'm just not a breakfast person. But for Meatless Monday, for lunch, I'm going to have that tomato soup that I mentioned. So, and then for dinner, I'm going to do some beans with a rice bowl. So this is going to be lime cilantro rice. And I'm going to use some leftover salsa from last week, like a roasted salsa. So what I'm going to do, like most of the white bits from the leek, I'm going to use for my soup, and the rest I'm going to use for my stamppot. Mainly for color, I like the contrast of the green against the almost white of the potato, and for the soup, I don't want all that green in there because I want it to be a vibrant red. So we'll just do that. Then I'm going to chop up some green onions. I'm going to use a little bit of that for my leek stampots, just to throw in raw at the end. And I'll also use it as a garnish for things like my rice bowl with beans and a few other dishes. So I'm just cutting it at an angle. We're on Tuesday for the meal plan. So for lunch, I'm going to do some sausage with some broccolini. I originally planned on doing some Romanesco, which is related to broccoli and cauliflower. But I have some broccolini left over from last week, so I decided to do that first. And then I'll just save the Romanesco for next week. So, what else do we have? I'm going to gather some ingredients for the curry paste as I go along. So I need some of these shallots. I just have a handful. I just peeled them. So those can go in. You can use a food processor or a blender. I just like using my blender. And then I'll put a couple of cloves of garlic in. And then these other cloves of garlic I'll just chop up. So yeah, lunch was the sausages with the broccolini. Then for dinner, I'm going to do some chicken quesadillas. So I think I have enough of that roasted salsa left over to use that as a sauce for my quesadillas as well. And if not, I have just some store-bought salsa And I'm just going to do a bunch of veggies like chilies, onions, peppers, garlic, etc. Then we're on Wednesday. So for lunch, I'm gonna do some. Actually, I said it wrong. I plan on doing coleslaw with sausage on Tuesday, and on Wednesday I'm gonna have some sausages with broccolini. But it doesn't really matter that much because I can still change things around. Because I'm not preparing whole meals. I'm just preparing the components, as I always say. So, and then for dinner, it's New Year's Eve on Wednesday, and I'm just gonna have a snacky dinner because I'm gonna be up late, so I'm just gonna spread that out over the night. I have a box of like chicken nugget, chicken kind of treats that I can put in the air fryer. I have some fries in the freezer that I can put in the air fryer. So it's just gonna be a snacky kind of dinner. And I didn't put that on my meal plan, but what I'll probably also have is some oliebollen and some appelflap. Those are traditional to have here in the Netherlands on New Year's Eve. And oliebollen is like, it literally translates as oil ball. It's kind of like a donut, but it's round with raisins in it. So I think that's actually where the donut originated from. So, and then an appelflap is like an apple turnover. So those are traditional. I usually have one of each year. Not the biggest fan, but I do like them. And like I said, they are traditional, so you have to honor your traditions. And by the way, I'm dicing up this red onion for my coleslaw. That's why I also put that in a bigger container so that I can just gather all my coleslaw ingredients in there and mix it in there and store it. So that was Wednesday. Then for Thursday, for lunch, I'm going to do some coleslaw with some chicken. And then I'm going to have coleslaw a couple of times this week because I usually make a big batch. It's not worth making like a single portion of coleslaw. So chicken, I can do chicken breasts, I can do chicken thighs, I can do chicken tenders, I can do like keto chicken nuggets. We'll just figure it out. Because I have a whole bunch of chicken in the freezer, different kinds, so I'll just take out what I need. And then for dinner, I'm going to do some chicken curry. So I'll use the curry paste that I'll make in a moment. You need some fenugreek, some mustard seeds, coconut milk. I'll do it with some sweet potato because I got some sweet potatoes for free, so I need to use them up. Then we were on Friday, Fish Friday. For lunch, I'm going to do some coleslaw with some salmon. And then for dinner, I'm going to do some fish tacos. So I'm going to use most of these onions for my soup, and I chose white onions. You can use regular yellow onions as well, but I chose that for color reasons. And then I'll use a little bit of onion with my leek stompot, so I'll just put that in there so I can use that all in one go. Yeah, with my leek stompot, I like to layer on the flavor, so leek and onion and garlic and a little bit of spring onion. So I'm gonna have one more onion to cut, and I'll use this in things like my quesadillas. So I'll just give them a slice, same as the white onions. Next up, let's do some peppers. So I'm just gonna cut them in half, take the seeds out, and I'll just dice those up by cutting them lengthwise and then across. And I'll use these in my quesadillas and my, what else am I going to use them in? Like probably my fish tacos, my rice bowl with beans. So I'll just finish off these 2 peppers. Oh, and I also like adding a little bit of pepper to my tomato soup. So I'll put some in the soup ingredients as well. Then next up, I have a whole bunch of chilies. I'll slice up 1 for my soup, just to make it spicy. This is just cayenne. I'm not going to bother taking the seeds out. And that goes in with my soup ingredients. And I have 1 more red, and I'll do 2 green. Those are going to go in things like my quesadillas, my rice bowl with beans. So I'll just slice those. And then I have a whole bunch of chilies that I'll put in my curry paste. So these cayenne, I'll just give them a rough chop so they're easier to fit in my food processor or blender in this case. Leave the seeds in because they don't bother me. They just add a little bit of spice. But then for the jalapenos, I will take the top off, cut them in half, and take the seeds out. And those can go in with the shallots, the garlic, and a few other ingredients that'll coming up soon. And you can use any kind of chili that you like. Just depends on how spicy you like it, and also the color determines the color of the curry. So these are green, so this is going to be mostly a green curry. If you use red chilies, it's going to be a red curry, etc. So next up, I have a bunch of tomatoes. Those are obviously going to go in my tomato soup, and they're also going to go in my curry. So I'm just going to quarter them and then half them again, so cut them into eighths. And that will just help that cook down quicker when I make my soup and my curry. So you can use canned tomatoes for this as well. I just prefer using fresh whenever I can. But yeah, I have like 10 tomatoes or something like that, so I'll just go through that real quick. Alright, 2 things. How many tomatoes you need depends on how big your tomatoes are. I used 8, so I'm going to save 2 for next time because this is more than enough. And 2, even though most of this is going to go in the soup, I'm not putting it in with the soup ingredients yet because I want all of that to cook down first before adding the tomatoes, because there's a lot of moisture in there. If I put them in at the same time, all that moisture is going to come out and the vegetables are just not going to get a bit of color on them. So keep them separate for now, do the other vegetables first, and then add the tomatoes. Then next up, I have some potatoes, obviously for my stamppot, because stamppot is always with potato. You mash the potato, that's why it's called stamppot. And I'll just give these a quick peel. And these potatoes I'll just cut into some rough chunks. And then for the soup, I also need some celery. So I just have a few last couple of small stalks, so I'll just finish all that off. I'm not gonna blend my soup or anything like that. I'm gonna leave everything whole, so I'm cutting it reasonably fine. And I could probably do with 1 more stalk, but this is what I have, so that's what I'll be using. And next up, I have some carrot. That's gonna go in my soup and in my coleslaw. For my soup, I just need to cut it smaller, so I'll take the tip of these large carrots off. If you use smaller carrots, you can just use 2 or 3, and I'll just, after I have them, I'll cut them into little half medallions. Again, reasonably fine because I'm not going to blend up my soup. but that can go in with my soup ingredients. And then I have these two ends here. I'm preferring to use these. It's a julienne because they're much easier to hold than the smaller end. So I'll just use my julienne slicer for this because it's nice and even and quick. And this is for my coleslaw. That should be enough. And sticking with my coleslaw, here I have some cabbage. Just take some of the outer leaves off. I left the rest on the stem because I'm not using up the whole thing. And if you leave the leaves on the stem in the fridge, they're going to last a lot longer. So what I'm going to do is cut the little heart part out, the little heart, and then cut it lengthwise, and just cut it nice and fine. And I'll do that to all these leaves, and I'll throw them in that container as well, so I can make my coleslaw after I finish chopping. So that was enough for my coleslaw, but I have a few more leaves that I will use for my fish tacos. So again, just taking the core out. I have one red cabbage leaf and two regular cabbage, just because I had some red cabbage, and we'll just make for some nice color. But yeah, I'm gonna shred this too, and I'm gonna keep this separate to put on my fish tacos. Then since I had some sweet potato, I'm gonna use that for my curry. I'll just peel that real quick. And I will cut that into chunks. Then next up, I have some cilantro. I'm gonna cut the stems off. Those are gonna go in my curry paste, and I also have some stems from last week. Traditionally, you'd use like a cilantro root, but since it's not sold with a root here, I'm just using the stems. It's a good way to use up stems because I use a lot of cilantro. And then the leaves and the really thin stalks, I'll just cut that up. So I'll do a rough cut first, and then run my knife through, and this is going to go in my lime cilantro rice. Then I have some cucumber. I'll use that for a sandwich. I have some lemongrass. That's going to go in my curry paste. So I'm just going to take the very ends off. And I'm just going to give it a rough chop again, so everything just blends together a lot easier and things don't get stuck at the top and not get sucked into the blades. So it doesn't need to be super fine, just, you know, a little smaller. So that can go in. Then here I have some turmeric and some ginger. And I'm just going to put a glove on and peel that. And the reason I'm going to put a glove on is because turmeric, it's orange inside, it stains yellow. If you see like monk's robes, that's stained with turmeric, so it will stain your hands badly, so use a glove. Otherwise, your hands are going to be yellow the rest of the day. And again, I'm just going to give that a rough chop. And I'll put that in my blender with my lemongrass, turmeric, ginger, cilantro stems, shallots, and garlic. Put the lid on and I'll blitz this. And then while that was blending, I did preheat my Ninja Foodi and put away the things that I don't need anymore. So Ninja Foodi preheated on saute, nice and hot. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil, and I'll add my soup ingredients. So that's onion, garlic, leek, carrot, chilies, and some pepper. I'll save the tomatoes for later. And to this, I'll add a bit of salt. And while I let that soften, I'll just transfer my curry paste to some glass containers. You want to store this in glass, not in plastic, because it will stain the plastic and it'll be yellow greenish for a long time. So I just have 2 jars, 3 jars. I'll just see how many I fill up. And I ended up with 2 jars, which is perfect because I always make a big batch, just like with my coleslaw. I make them enough for multiple meals, so one I'll use on Thursday for my chicken curry, and the other I'll use next week for my vegan curry. So this will stay good in the fridge for up to about 2 weeks, I'd say. And then my vegetables have softened, so I'm going to add some of my tomatoes now. Saving some for my curry, and I'll let that cook down for a moment while I make my coleslaw. So cabbage, diced onion, shredded carrot, add some salt, some pepper. I usually use freshly ground pepper, but for this I prefer using pre-ground just because there's not of the hard bits in there. I'll add some mustard, Dijon mustard. I like it quite mustardy, use however much you like. And some mayo. Not too much at first, because the salt will draw out more moisture. I've said this before, I've made coleslaw quite a few times on my channel. So it will get a little bit wetter. You don't want it too wet to start with. You can always add a bit more mayo. Like I think I need a little bit more. But don't overdo it, because it will get really thin and watery. But yeah, if it's not coming together, add a little bit more mayo. But be conservative. And now that that's all mixed through, I'll just give it a little taste, see if it needs any more salt or mustard or anything like that. No, that's just the way I like it. So that's ready to go. Now I just need to finish off my soup. And now that my tomatoes have softened a bit as well, I'm going to add some water. I will add my pressure cook lid. Make sure the valve is closed. Pressure cook. We'll do 20 minutes, that's more than enough for some soup, because it's just some vegetables. And like I always say, I have a pressure cooker, so I'm going to use it. If you just want to use a slow cooker or just a pot on the stove or whatever, you can totally do that. It's just a lot easier for me because it takes less time, so I can get to editing and get this video out. But yeah, we'll just wait for the soup now. I did end up blending my soup, it just looked better like that. But yeah, that's all the prep work done for this week. I just need to warm this through tomorrow when I have it, and all my other veggies are prepped and ready to go, so now I can have lunch or dinner on the table in minutes. If you like this kind of content, I do this every single Sunday, and if you'd like to see what I do with all the ingredients that I prepped, you can check out my Instagram where I post every single meal. Also check out my Instagram if you want the written menu plan and all of that stuff. Or you can also check out the video I post on here about once a month where I show you everything I eat in a day for a whole week. And I'll do one again soon, probably just after the holidays. So if that all sounds good to you, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.